So today's story kicks off with Su Chen, the ultimate doomsday prepper. Imagine a dude with the foresight of a psychic and the survival skills of a boss. But Su Chen ain't just ready, he's stacked with enough gear to outlast any apocalypse. Eager to know what happens ahead? Let's begin with the story. It is Zhongshan Road where a bus is carrying passengers who have evacuated their houses. A guy sitting by a young pretty girl exclaims how a few days ago, an underwater earthquake and the eruption of Mount Fuji caused the deaths of tens of thousands of people, and unfortunately, the people also had to evacuate their place. Meanwhile, the pretty girl notes that she didn't bring all her belongings with her and mentions that she will have to buy supplies in Jiangnan City, where they are headed. The guy then questions her if she saw the news and reveals that goods in Walmart and LA warehouses in Jiangnan City have all been moved. Another guy sitting beside the girl interferes and mentions that this is outdated news. He adds that it's that day the Dongming Lake in Shenxing dried up and the Darundong warehouse was emptied as well. Meanwhile, our main protagonist, sitting behind them, mentions that the loss of these supplies would have easily surpassed in the tens of trillions and asks them to wake up and see what's going on. The girl questions the protagonist if he is talking about the end of the world, while the guy beside her comments how all living beings will be equal if it ever comes to that. Hearing this, the protagonist begins to recall that even at the time of the apocalypse, humanity will never be treated equally, something that he has already experienced in his past life. In his previous life, the protagonist was a delivery man. When the apocalypse ascended, due to the abnormal release of solar energy, many rare phenomena occurred which led to monsters that were hidden underground coming back to the surface. That day, the world changed and a new world order was implemented. In that world, there was an extreme scarcity of supplies. It turns out that our protagonist was born 1 month before the apocalypse. Later, the protagonist reaches his workplace and begins wondering how supplies are the most important thing in an apocalypse. He believes this is because in his previous life he wasted too much of his time searching for supplies, so this time he wants to make up for that mistake. He proceeds to go inside the warehouse where the attendee tells him that being 21 seconds late will cause a deduction in his half-a-day salary. After getting inside the warehouse, the protagonist recalls how in the last life when the apocalypse was bestowed, the boss ran away, leaving his annual salary go down the drain. He proceeds to use Space Unfold and all the supplies available inside the warehouse begin to get stored automatically. Using his power spatial ability, he has stripped off the once loaded warehouse with no supplies left to be seen anywhere. He believes that as long as he unfolds his spatial ability, everything around him can be put into a super large cubic space, with dimensions of 10,000 meters in length, width, and height according to his will. This provides great convenience for purchasing supplies with $0. Relying on this ability, he dried up 2 freshwater lakes and plundered several cities destined to be destroyed in the apocalypse. Since he has fresh food stored now, the protagonist takes a sigh of relief, realizing that he won't have to eat dirt anymore unlike before. Shortly after, the inventory guy arrives at the warehouse only to find it empty, leading him to question the protagonist where everything went. In response, he states that he took everything. Hearing that the protagonist took everything, the inventory guy orders 2 of his men to go and catch him. He comments that he won't be getting late this time, proceeds to fall to his back to the glass facing outside, and disappears. The inventory guy along with his 2 men are left in awe to see him disappearing out of thin air. Meanwhile, he successfully lands on the ground outside the warehouse. He describes this as space jump, which happens to be his second ability. With this ability, he can shuttle within 3 meters of space. He realizes that in this apocalypse, with this ability, he can enter abandoned buildings to find supplies and safely escape. Not only that, this time jump ability can even prevent him from facing any dangers in the face of mutant beasts. The protagonist is now done with his zero-cost shopping mission after storing all the supplies from the warehouse. Suddenly, he receives a notification on his phone alerting him about the official statement from the government to cause the stoppage of panic among the citizens. The protagonist wonders if they are aware that the apocalypse is near. There his phone rings with the incoming call from Jian Xiaoqian, the girl with whom he is together with. This is where the protagonist is introduced as Su Chen, as Xiaoqian angrily calls his name out. On the phone, she discusses Chen's recent act of selling his house and even putting the house on sale with the real estate agent. Xiaoqian questions Chen if he thinks a woman will be willing to be with him after he sells his house, and adds that if he doesn't give her the house as a gift, she won't feel secure with him. Chen then tells Xiaoqian that he's on his way back to Shangdu, so they will talk when he gets back. Turns out that Xiaoqian and Chen spent 5 years together in the previous life, and it was Chen who saved her in the apocalypse and gave her food to eat and shelter. One time, Xiaoqian goes as far to aid with another man, Wang Haoyu, while Chen stays on the ground, injured and passed out. Chen recalls how he was wronged in his previous life, so this time, Chen is quite determined to pay them for everything that they did and give them the most painful death. Moreover, Chen is so infused with anger that he not only wants them to suffer, but to also make them experience the pain that he tasted. Soon, Chen wonders how he needs cash for the next bit of supplies and immediately goes on to contact his manager. Chen offers to sell his house for half the price, and in return, he asks to be paid in cash right at that moment. After a while, Chen makes his way to the real estate agent where he meets with Seoshin waiting for him. She questions Chen how long he thinks she has been waiting, but Chen pays no attention, tells her to move aside, and continues walking. A guy holding a baseball bat, Wang Haoyu, questions Chen as to who let him sell their house. Wang then dares Chen to sell the house and threatens him that he will make him not see the light of the day ever again. This ignites a sudden reaction from Chen, who grows infuriated in the blink of an eye, proceeds to grab Wang by his throat and lifts him in the air. In a daunting tone, Chen tells Wang that he can handle his stuff however he wants. Xiaoxian asks Chen to let go of Haoyu and begins calling out as murder. In response, Chen slaps Xiaoxian as well, leading her to fall. Chen then lets go of Haoyu, asking him not to worry as he won't die yet. Xiaoxian then quickly goes to Haoyu to make sure that he's okay and asks Chen to immediately kneel and apologize, otherwise he can forget about marrying her in this life. Chen turns around, thinks that the two are worthless, and continues on his way. He then meets with the real estate agent who agrees to buy Chen's house. The real estate agent believes that Chen is dumb for selling his house worth $1 million for just $700,000. He realizes that he can make a lot of profit on this with just a quick turnaround. The real estate agent then asks Chen to sign the contract and transfer the money, and mentions that the transfer of ownership can be done on Monday. Chen agrees, thinking internally about how it would be of no use as the apocalypse is going to come. Chen then proceeds to walk out of the agency, thinking how Shan Yu still has an orderly life even though various natural calamities such as tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes are happening all over the world. While walking, Chen comes across a poster on a pole regarding high-interest loans. He immediately calls them and asks if he can mortgage his property with a property certificate. Later, Chen appears to have reached the loan company where he gets told that his house doesn't seem to be worth much. In response, Chen questions how much he can borrow from there. The loan guy happens to be Wang Hoyu's elder brother, Wang Dahai, who died in the mouths of the mutant beasts in his previous life. Chen gets told that he can borrow $500,000, but will have to leave the property certificate. Chen presents the certificate and asks for $100,000 more and assures that he is going to make a profit and pay back immediately. Just like that, Chen receives $600,000 more in his bank account. Meanwhile, Cheokyun and Haoyu catch up to Chen and decide to follow him to see what he has been up to these past few days. Chen then enters the Green City Hotel, which was able to withstand various natural disasters until the end during the apocalypse in previous life. Chen is then received by the hotel's restaurant manager, Liu Xinru. Chen asks Xinru to book him 1,000 tables worth of $10,000 per table. Moreover, Chen decides to deposit $500,000 in advance. Xinru then questions Chen if he is getting married, leading Chen to confirm. Chen further asks Xinru to book him a presidential suite as well. Chen is now done with almost all the stuff. Now, he only needs two things, and one of them happens to be a block of ice, as the scorching heat in the post-apocalyptic world would be unbearable. Soon, Xiaoxian arrives at the hotel and asks Xinru what Chen did there while introducing herself as his girlfriend. Xinru reveals how Chen booked 1,000 tables and even made a huge advance payment, leaving Haoyu and Xiaoxian in shock, thinking that Chen had been rich all along. As for Xiaoqian, she decides to create opportunities for Chen to have his attention. She never imagined such a scenario in her life, and especially with Chen, who she considers as a bootlicker. So far, Chen has sold the house for $700,000, took out a high-interest loan of $600,000, and spent $500,000 on the banquet. Chen realizes that the remaining $800,000 that he has is not much, so he decides to take out an online loan and goes on to download more than 80 apps at once and manages to get a loan of 970,000 yuan. Not willing to waste any time, Chen immediately begins to work. He recalls how fireplaces, ice makers, ice blocks, smokeless coal, these things are not available in the supermarket, but they can be delivered to your doorstep quite easily. Chen decides to have a good amount of stuff to prevent scorching heat and cold. Chen then orders 2,000 tons of smokeless coal and goes on to a pay deposit price of 500,000 yuan. Chen then contacts the ice-making factory and informs them that he would like to order blocks of ice. He then gets asked to come to the store where they can have a face-to-face discussion, and Chen agrees. As soon as Chen is done with the phone call, Xiaoqian arrives there with her female friend Lena. Lena tells Chen how he is not paying any attention to Xiaoqian and that she has been missing him. Chen wonders if she is missing his house and not him. Xiaoqian then tells Chen that she does not feel well about the time when she scolded him earlier and asks him to accompany her for a walk. However, Chen states that he has more important stuff to take care of and asks Xiaoxin to take a stroll by herself. They then notice Chen getting in a taxi and decide to follow him. Chen then makes his way to the store where the ice is made. There he strikes a deal with the man to produce 2,000 tons of edible ice. The guy tells Chen that his ice factory is the best that he can find and mentions that his order will be done in 3 days. Moreover, in total, they will cost 8,000 yuan, and Chen decides to deposit 100,000 yuan and asks the guy to take the remaining payment after the delivery has been done. The man questions Chen why he wants this much ice, leading Chen to reveal that he will donate it to Alashan for charity. Chen then leaves, accompanied by Lina and Xiaoxin arriving there. They ask the guy what Chen was there for and what he wants to do with that much ice, leading him to reveal that he will donate it to a charity. Chen then makes his way to a luxurious restaurant where he orders a 17,000 mysterious chef's special dish. Soon, the head chef arrives with Chen's expensive dish, and Chen immediately recognizes her as Duanya, the Hell's chef. Duan introduces the dish and its texture, and Chen proceeds to devour it in no time. Although he wishes for Duan to be his chef during the apocalypse but worries that she might poison him. Later, Chen is enjoying his time, having a private company of beautiful women all around him. A girl Yvamian sits there in pain as she recently had her breakup. She proceeds to get drunk and begins flirting with Chen, while Xiaoxin and Lina arrive there. Union accompanies Chen to a private room upstairs where Chen talks some sense into her and asks her to not come to this place in the future. Meanwhile, Xiaoxin and Lina hunt Chen like a wild dog. The stuff Chen has ordered from multiple places has arrived. There, Hoyu informs Xiaoxin how Chen has rented a warehouse to place all the stuff that he has just bought. Shortly after, the banquet from the Green City Hotel begins getting placed, leaving them shocked. Even a red carpet is laid, making Xiaoqin believe that Chen has important and rich guests and that he is going to introduce her as his bride. However, she decides not to accept the offer and asks Lina to accompany her to Chen to check his sincerity. Xiaoqin then asks Chen what he has been up to with all this stuff. Chen states that he is going to tell her everything after they are done moving stuff and asks her to help him out. There, Lina believes that Chen is doing this as a test to see if Xiaoqin is worthy enough to be his rich wife. Thus, Xiaoqin decides to help despite being so egotistical. Lina also decides to lend a helping hand, thinking that she might also have a chance. After a while, they are finally finished moving all the stuff. Xiaoqin and Lina are completely exhausted as Chen made them pick up weights more than themselves. They then begin to wonder if the test is over and wait for Chen to announce Xiaoqin as his bride. Meanwhile, Chen pays the delivery men a hefty amount for their hard work and sees them off. Xiaoqin then approaches Chen and asks him if he has something to tell her. Chen proceeds to thank Xiaoqin for her help and mentions that there is no pay for her. Xiaoqin then tells Chen to get married, prompting Chen to question her if she is willing to marry someone who is drowned in debt. Chen then reveals that he did all this for a boss who wanted to do a good deed. This infuriates Xiaoqin to an unimaginable extent, and she begins to call out Chen for being a liar. She then tells him that she would never marry him. However, Chen mentions how he does not want a gold digger like her either. Lina and Xiaoqin then leave from there, warning Chen that he is going to pay for what he has done. Chen is finally relieved as everything has been settled, and he proceeds to open his infinite storage. Later, Hoyu and Xiaoqin are present with Hoyu's brother, Dahai, who tells Xiaoqin to follow Hoyu as he can give her a good life. Xiaoqin agrees and feels that Hoyu can give her a good life, unlike Chen. Meanwhile, Chen sits there, enjoying his meal, stating how Xiaoqin isn't picky. This leads Dahai to confront Chen for troubling his brother and Xiaoqin. Soon, Xinri arrives there as well. However, when things begin to go out of control, a man with a dominant behavior arrives, questioning what is going on there. The man is introduced as Gao Fang. Kang tells Dahai that he has important matters to attend to on that day and asks him to not cause any trouble. Turns out that Kang is a well-known entrepreneur in Shangdu and has a very wide network in the underground world where many people are under his command, so it is not a good idea to be on his bad side. Meanwhile, Chen recalls how in previous life Kang used to be a major face and how he also had the Hell's chef under his wing. Kang then looks over at Chen and finds his glare to be interesting. Kang takes Duanya to meet with Sun Dibio. Dibio then offers a glass of wine to Duanya and tells him that he has heard tales of her beauty and how he is honored to finally meet her now. Meanwhile, Chen stands by the window of his room, thinking how in his previous life he hid in the basement with Xiaoqin to defend themselves from the scorching heat. However, this time it's different since they are not together anymore, but in this way, Chen can have his revenge on her. At the same time, the Wang brothers are getting excited about going to the pool as they will get to see girls in their swimming suits. Soon, Lina and Xiaoqin arrive and the group proceed to head towards the swimming pool. In a strange turn of events, the apocalypse begins and the temperature suddenly rises to an extreme high, so high that a normal human being is not designed to withstand such temperatures. The group immediately runs for the shelter as their skins begin turning red. Except for Dahai, the group succeeds in making their way into the shelter, where they immediately jump into the water. However, it is then that Dahai arrives with his entire body turned red, pleading to be helped. Meanwhile, Debio questions Duanya why she is not drinking the wine that he has poured and mentions how no one denies drinking the wine that he pours. Moreover, he asks Kang to stay out of this situation. This leads Duanya to see that Kang is trying so hard to climb up to Sun Debio that he even sets her up. Debio thinks he is invincible in Shangdu, harming many women, and Duanya realizes that she is the target that day. Furthermore, she believes that there must be something wrong with the drink and decides not to drink it no matter what. All of a sudden, the scorching moonlight begins to appear inside, leading them to quickly close the curtains. They then proceed to go downstairs where they see Xinru trying to prevent panic and asking everyone to stay calm. Realizing that something is off, Debio contacts Minister Zhao and asks to be picked up from the Green City Hotel, only to discover that nobody is available to come over. Meanwhile, Dahai gets told that he needs to go to the hospital to get checked up as the burn marks are serious. Dahai then asks them not to worry as he will have Shio Dao driver over to pick them up. Dahai contacts Dao and asks him to come pick them up. Dao proceeds to leave the underground garage in his van. However, all 4 tires blow out due to intense heat. Dao is confused by the type of crazy weather that they are facing. He then contacts Dahai to inform him about all 4 of his tires blowing off due to heat and mentions that he cannot pick them up as he needs to go back after starting to feel the effect of scorching heat. Unfortunately, Dao's foot gets stuck due to his shoes sticking to the ground, prompting him to fall on his face. Due to this, a disturbing event takes place and Dao begins to have his skin boiled on his face due to the road being way too hot, while Dahai and Ko hear the last bit of his suffering. Meanwhile, Chen is sleeping in his room with the AC turned on. Due to the sudden release of intense heat from the moon, outdoor temperatures have risen to 75 degrees with ground temperatures reaching 100 degrees. This event has already caused hundreds of casualties and people are being asked to stay indoors and to not go outdoors. Even the cell tower has exploded due to intense heat. Dahai informs his group that Dao is no more. They then notice how they will have to sleep in the same room as all the other rooms have been taken already. The electricity then gets shut down as well, leading the air conditioning to stop. Therefore, one of them points out how the temperature inside their room is already about 40 degrees and if they are to stay there for a bit long, they will suffocate and die. Xiaoqian then reminds them of Chen's presidential suite having a swimming pool, so they decide to go to his room. Meanwhile, Chen is peacefully enjoying the swimming pool. It is then revealed why Chen chose a room with a swimming pool, as he knew already that the electricity wouldn't be able to run in this scorching heat, and thus they might face a power breakdown. Moreover, Chen has also prepared vertical air conditioners and large backup batteries to ensure room temperature. He then decides to add some ice in his room as well to get more cool. Chen then begins to feel hungry and proceeds to pull out all the luxurious food that he has stacked. Suddenly, Dahai and his group arrive at his door, where Xiaoqian asks Shen to open the door, stating that they are aware of his presence inside the room. Shen goes on to open the door, only for them to discover that Chen already has all the necessary stuff to overcome the scorching heat. The group then begins to force Chen to leave his room and for them to get cooled off as well. Dahai steps into the room to kick Chen out, leading him to get shot in his abdomen and then on his thighs. It is clear to the group that they have no way to enjoy the cooling temperature at that moment, so they leave. Meanwhile, Kong discovers that the hotel has no food left as Shinri reveals how someone ordered 1,000 tables and the delivery is set to be for that day. Soon, Dahai's group arrives, stating how Chen is murdering people. Xiaoqian even reveals how Chen's room has air conditioning, electricity, and even a swimming pool. She adds that there was a lot of fancy food and describes Chen's room as heaven. The people then begin to march toward Chen's room to ask him to let them cool off as well. They reach his room and begin to emotionally blackmail Chen to let them stay in his room. A kid even tries to sneak in after seeing the fried chicken, leading Chen to make the kid trip and fall. Immediately, the people begin to turn on Chen for being a bad guy and for hurting kids. This allows them to rebel against Chen, noticing how he is the one who is alone and they are the ones in huge amounts. They plan to rush inside Chen's room, kick him out, and take over his room. However, Chen is not willing to give things up so easily as he proceeds to shoot a guy dead in cold blood, shooting him in the head. Chen reminds them that he might be alone, but they also have just one life. Hoi rushes to his brother Dahai only to find him dead after not being able to take the pain and the wound getting rotten due to the heat. Hoyu blames Chen for his brother's death and promises to have Dahai avenged by killing Chen. Meanwhile, Xiaoqin and Lina attempt to seduce Chen into taking them in. Chen agrees only to inform them that the one to enter his room will not leave him alive. At the same time, Hoyu rushes into Chen's room to get his revenge on him, only to brutally get hit by Chen with a baseball bat. Just like that, Chen manages to make them go away. Meanwhile, people downstairs notice specially modified armored vehicles approaching the hotel. They immediately that they are the rescue team. They see that the tires are modified into treads and the windows are also insulated. After a while, the vehicles come to a halt as several soldiers step out of the vehicles in their insulated suits. One of the soldiers questions if the academician Liu Zhengo is there. Liu Zhengo steps forward, revealing his presence. The soldier then asks him to put on the insulated suit and mentions that he's going to leave with them. Moreover, the soldier asks everyone else to calm down, explaining that the authorities have already launched a rescue operation. He explains further that midnight is the coldest time of the day and tells them to make their way to Silicon Valley Plaza on their own, as it is the nearest rescue center point. Sun Debio then comes forward and offers 1 billion in exchange for him getting an insulated suit and being taken away to safety. However, the soldier holds him in a lock, asking him to step away and let them carry on their operation. The soldier adds how Zhengo plays an important role as he is their geological expert. As the soldiers are about to leave, Xiaoqin arrives and informs the soldiers about a mass murderer living in a presidential suite upstairs. Lena confirms this as well, prompting one of the soldiers, Xiaofeng, to mention that he will stay here and deal with this situation. Xiaofeng then begins to make his way upstairs to Chen's room. However, he gets badly knocked out after Chen notices Xiaofeng's presence. He then wakes up inside Chen's room, tied up to a chair. He questions Chen about where he got his guns from, leading him to answer and mention that he got them during a trip to the Middle East. The two then begin to discuss how thick blankets and coats can help prevent this scorching heat. Chen then proceeds to hold the gun against Xiaofeng's head, making him think that Chen is going to kill him, only for Chen to cut off the ropes and free Xiaofeng. Chen mentions how he won't kill him this time, but tells him how he will not tolerate his repeated provocations towards him. Xiaofeng then sees that Chen has a surveillance drone that will only allow Chen to survive in his room and not anyone else. Soon, Xiaofeng leaves after being thrashed by Chen, leading for the people to believe the level of might Chen possesses. Meanwhile, Kang is waiting for the rescue operation and for the order to be restored. Soon, Chen arrives there only to see that Kang is still interested in restoring the order. Kang questions Chen about his arrival downstairs, leading him to respond and mention that he is there to offer a deal to Chen. Kang's subordinate gets greedy after seeing ice cubes and proposes to kill Chen and take all his stuff. Chen proceeds to take out his gun and places the barrel by his throat, leading Chang to interfere and calm down the situation. The two then begin to have ice cubes to cool down. Suddenly, Debio arrives and starts beating Chang for hiding ice cubes from him. Debio then sees Duanya sitting while covering herself and looking modest. Debio is feeling a little funky, so he decides to play with her and proceeds to grab her by her arms. As Duanya tries to resist, Debio proceeds to tear off her clothes, revealing that she is soaked from her breasts. He decides to take it even further and take off her clothes completely when suddenly Kang arrives and speaks up for Duanya. Kang proceeds to kill Debio, ending his dominance over him. He then announces that this place will be under his command from now on and asks everyone else to either go to the rescue point or die of starvation in the hotel. Seeing this, Chen realizes that his words are effective. He then begins to wonder, since Kang was the boss here in his past life, and if he is to accelerate the process of this matter, Chen ponders if Kang's opportunity will come earlier. Meanwhile, Xiaoqin and Lina offer to do anything to have some ice water. Kang proceeds to pass them a bucket filled with ice water, stating that they will have to do whatever they want. There, Kang's subordinate asks him whether he is not going to the rescue point. Kang responds and explains that the doomsday is in effect, and if one wants to survive, they will have to rely on themselves. He adds that since the rescue point is 1 kilometer away, it is not certain whether one can make it there alive. Soon, the people begin to depart for the rescue point along with Xiaoqin and Leon. However, Kang's subordinate stops them, asking Xiaoqin to spend some time with him since she offered to do anything. Meanwhile, the people are exhausted after making just a few meters as the scorching heat is proving to be quite disastrous. They even have wooden boards beneath their shoes to protect them from not getting burned, but the hotness is still getting through to their feet. People are even falling and dying, but there's nothing anyone can do since they would be dead as well if they were to stop and help the fallen. Chen begins to think how in his previous life he went to the rescue point like others, but at that time, no one reminded him to bring a blanket. Meanwhile, Xiaoqin suggests Kang's subordinate take things upstairs. All of a sudden, the corpses of Dahai and Debiao resurrect and begin to act like zombies. As they begin to cause chaos inside the hotel, Chen is quick to arrive there. He asks everyone to step aside, leading Chang to let Chen deal with these creatures, and he has decided to kill Chen afterward. Turns out that in the apocalypse, corpses exposed to sunlight are bound to mutate. They are not zombies and won't spread the virus. Chen refers to these creatures as drought demons based on the Chinese mythological creatures book called the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Chen reflects on how these drought demons retain some memories or attachments from their previous lives. He believes that in the previous life it is likely that Qiang killed Debio, which led him to hold onto the desire for revenge against Kang. In the same fashion, since Chen was the one to kill Dahai, he has held onto the desire to get revenge on Chen. This makes Chen realize that Qiang's opportunity is finally here. Chen then proceeds to use his sword to slice Dahai's brain to gain the crystal nucleus that can bring about a superhuman physique. He then leaves Qiang and Ko to deal with Debio and leaves for his room. In the room, Chen contemplates how these crystals are extremely hard to get and considers himself lucky for getting the crystal on the first try. He proceeds to clear the crystal, and after swallowing it, Chen goes through a transformation where his physique can be physically seen getting improved by leaps and bounds. Meanwhile, Qiang and Ko, after a lot of effort and strategies, manage to knock down Debio. At the same time, Lina attempts to sneak and leave for the rescue point but gets caught by Dao, Qiang's subordinate, who threatens to chop her legs off if she ever attempts to run again. To save herself from this situation, Lina uses her friend Xiaoqin as bait and reveals that she is the fiancée of Chen. Moreover, she suggests Dao use Xiaoqin to lure Chen out and then ambush him to take over his room. Thereupon, Xiaoqin decides to volunteer but asks to be fed meat. However, since they do not have any meat left, Fang offers Xiaoqin to eat Lina's flesh after killing her. Noticing that Lina is willing to use her as bait, Xiaoqin doesn't hesitate at all and proceeds to walk up to her, prompting Lina to ask her to stay back. However, Xiaoqin goes on to stab Lina to death, leaving her to bleed out on the floor. Qiang and Ko then decide to munch on Lina's flesh as well since they are running low on supplies. Thereafter, Dao asks his men to look for Duanya and bring her to him. Soon, Shen gets done with his transformation and immediately feels that his heat resistance has improved. Suddenly, Duanya arrives at Chen's doorstep in a last-ditch effort to save herself. Chen opens the door, not realizing that he is naked, asking Duanya if everything's okay. Shortly after, he takes her in and explains that he cannot let her stay since there are not many supplies. Duanya begins to explain how she's a medical expert as well and begins to think to herself how Chen's room has all the necessary stuff for them to survive, which makes her realize that she has to prove her worth for Chen to let her stay. Chen believes the fact of her being a doctor to be enticing but mentions how the supplies are scarce now and how it is not certain if they will be able to survive till tomorrow. However, Duanya is satisfied as long as Chen doesn't kick her out of the building. In response, Chen agrees to let her stay but warns her that her only choice in front of him is to behave herself and not to have any ulterior motives. Duanya claims that she understands and states that she will never doubt Chen's methods and determination. Chen then asks Duanya to take off her clothes, catching her by surprise and leading her to question if Chen's methods have already started. With water, electricity, food, and even the ability to take a shower, Duanya now does not have to worry about the scorching weather and being eaten by others. However, she is also aware that Chen isn't exactly a saint either. Later, as Duanya approaches Chen, he tells her how he had to keep an eye on her while she showers to make sure that she doesn't do anything improper. After a while, Duanya walks out of the changing room in a tight nurse outfit and asks Chen if it isn't too small. In response, Chen comments how it looks perfect on her. Suddenly, Chen's door begins banging loudly as it turns out Qiang and Ko are there to take over his room. Kang warns Chen to open the door, otherwise threatens to break it down. Duanya tells Chen how they cannot open the door no matter what as they have already eaten Lina. This comes off as a revelation for Chen. Giving on to curiosity, Chen opens the door to find out what's going on with them. All of a sudden, Dao begins to ambush Chen but gets brutally attacked by Chen and gets his arm broken in the process. Xiaoqin then rushes to Chen's room but gets held in a chokehold by Chen, who reveals that once she has eaten human flesh, her body will mutate and fangs will grow in her mouth. As it turns out, Xiaoqin is no longer a human and neither are Qiang and Ko. However, they comment how it does not even matter anymore since the world is coming to an end. Meanwhile, Xiaoqin tells Chen how the flesh is very delicious and comments on how she can feel an increase in her strength. Chen proceeds to throw her out of the window, leading her to get burned by the scorching heat. Qiang and Ko then decide to attack Chen altogether. They decide to stop Chen from drawing his gun and circle him around from all directions. Moreover, they see that they are not only stronger now, but their speed and reaction time have vastly improved. They believe that Chen is finding it difficult to deal with them, But that is not all the case, as they end up getting overpowered by Chen, who has defeated all of them but Chang. Chen is holding Chang in a chokehold when suddenly a mutated Xiaoshan appears in front of Chen. Chen sees her and realizes that she mutated so quickly into this state and believes that her attachment is quite deep. Meanwhile, Chang reaches his demise. Chen then tells Xiaoshan that if she cannot disappear, then he will just have to kill her again. Duanya sees that Chen is amazing to have taken down all of them all by himself. However, she is terrified of the monster Xiaoqin has transformed into and begins to get a dangerous feeling from her. Duanya sees that she has to think of a way to help Chen, as she cannot become a burden to him. She then calls out Chen and asks him to let her defeat the monster. However, Chen believes that Duanya is only going to distract him. The monster begins to roar at Chen and shortly after attacks him in an attempt to take him down. But Chen is quick to notice her coming his way, and he immediately strikes it down, activating his superpower Berserker mode. The Berserker mode enables Chen to be extremely powerful, so much so that his body turns into a stone. Shortly after, Xiaoqin attempts to bite Chen on his right shoulder, but only in vain, as Chen does not even flinch, questioning Xiaoqin if her fangs are just for show. Chen then proceeds to hold both of her limbs, applies some pressure, and manages to rip them off of her body. The tremendous display of power truly gives an idea of how powerful Chen is and how he is already prepared for the worst possible scenarios. Chen comments how he had planned to let Xiaoqin suffer more in the apocalypse, slowly torturing her to death, but notes that now he will have to kill her earlier. All of a sudden, Xiaoqin gets up, devours the corpse of one of them lying dead there, and manages to recover her severed limbs. This comes off as news for Chen, as this is something he was not aware of. Duanya sees that and cannot believe how it is possible. On the other hand, Chen finds it amusing, since he believes that if Xiaoqin can regenerate her limbs, it means that she is not easy to kill after all, and it also means that Chen can tear them apart again and again for however long he wishes to. He then proceeds to approach Xiaoqin, grabs her arm, and proceeds to tear it apart, while mentioning that he is going to experiment and see how many times she can regenerate her limbs. First the left hand and then the right hand, Chen rips them both apart. The next body parts he experiments on are the tail and both legs. However, this was only the first round. He then questions Xiaoqin if she is ready for the next round. In the 8th round, Chen decides to tear apart not just limbs but also eyes and tongue, and discovers that even they can regenerate. In the 16th round, Chen discovers that Xiaoqin's internal organs can regenerate as well. It turns out that except for the head, every body part can regenerate. However, Xiaoqin has stopped regenerating after the 21st round. Chen initially planned to gouge out the eyes as well, but he has decided to let it be, as he is not a devil. Xiaoqin then slowly turns to Chen and asks him why he treated her like this, leading Chen to respond and mention that he has done it solely for revenge for how she treated him in the previous life. Chen then proceeds to smash open Xiaoqin's head with his foot. He then goes over to Duanya, who questions Chen if he is okay. In response, Chen questions her if she is ready, but when she questions for what, Chen explains that he just did something heroic and is expecting some sort of reward from Duanya. The outside temperature seems to be normalizing. It is the rescue point zone, and the soldiers there are wondering if the apocalypse is coming to an end. A young soldier alerts his captain, mentioning how a lot of people are approaching the rescue point. The captain looks over at the group of people and sees that they are no longer what they used to be, but now they are a zombie horde. She then asks the soldier to quickly evacuate the civilians from the rescue point and decides to hold these zombies off by herself. When the soldier hesitates to leave his captain all alone to deal with such formidable creatures, she insists that it is in order. Meanwhile, Chen is ready to unleash his power of Berserker on Duanya in bed, while making love with her. Duanya objects, questioning how many times he is going to make love with her in one go. Chen then comments that the extreme heatwave is over, so he will have to go out for a bit, which is why he has decided to leave Duanya with some unforgettable memories. She questions Chen if she can come with him, leading Chen to explain that the people around him must meet 2 conditions. The first one is that they must be valuable, and the second is that they will have to obey his orders. Later, Chen believes that Duanya has completely submitted to him. He then decides to hurry up and leave, as he must be back before the seawater surges in. Many of the zombies in the previous life, driven by the obsession to reach the rescue point, eventually form a tidal wave attacking the rescue point. This led to many casualties in the form of soldiers and civilians dying in the tidal wave attack. This incident even led to a large amount of military weapons being scattered, which is how various factions formed. Chen is asked to stop his car by a goon who is pointing a pistol at Chen. Chen finds it absurd that these mobs are stopping people and robbing them at a time like this. He proceeds to run them over and leaves. Same as previous life, the walls cracked due to the scorching sun, and combined with the onslaught of the zombie wave, it eventually led to the collapse of the subway station as well. Chen stops by a hole in the ground and sees a huge amount of zombies there. However, unfortunately, not all zombies have crystals in their heads, and Chen believes that it's too time-consuming to crack each skull open one by one. Chen then decides to check out the situation at the college first, and he recalls how this is his first time back at the engineering college since graduation. Chen then makes his way inside, where he encounters 3 mobs telling Chen that he is trespassing. In response, Chen asks them to help him pass through and reveals that he has some braised chicken legs. Soon, Chen pulls out the chicken leg from his backpack, leaving them shocked to see that he has such items during the apocalypse. The mob leader then asks Chen to quickly toss and pass those chicken legs to them, and Chen proceeds to do so. The 3 of them immediately jump onto the chicken leg to have it for themselves when suddenly, Chen pulls the string and the chicken leg comes back to him. Chen apologizes and tells them that they aren't worthy of eating these chicken legs. This angers the 3 mobs to a great extent, and they begin to ambush Chen to make him pay for fooling them. However, Chen quickly pulls out his pistol and shoots all 3 of them right in the middle of the head. Chen reflects on how he doesn't remember there being so many idiots in his past life. Chen then makes his way to the Department of Reptiles and Snakes, but sees a lock on the door. This makes Chen realize that nobody has entered this lab for a while, as many snakes have died and the air is filled with decay. He then continues making his way, but suddenly comes to a halt when he finds the thing that he has been looking for. The remaining mobs make their way outside the room where Chen is and asks him to get out. However, Chen has no time to deal with such idiots. Suddenly, the lady captain from earlier arrives and manages to knock out the 3 mobs. Chen then holds her by the gunpoint, prompting her to attempt twisting Chen's neck with her thighs. But things end up in an awkward situation as she is unable to twist Chen's neck, and on top of that, she has her private part on the face of Chen. Shortly after, she is tied to a chair by Chen, waiting to interrogate her. Chen questions her as to who she is, and in response, he introduces herself as Bai Kang, the captain of the Azure Tiger Special Operations Team. Kang then advises Chen to behave himself and let her go. Chen questions her if she is aware of who Liu Xiaofeng is and reveals that he once saved his life. Seeing that she is aware of who Xiaofeng is, Chen realizes that it's going to be a detailed conversation. He even makes a stake for himself in the meantime. Chen discovers that when the zombie horde attacked the rescue point, Xiaofeng led the civilians to leave first, but he didn't expect that some escaped prisoners had infiltrated among the normal civilians. Kang then inquires to Chen as to how long he is going to keep her tied up. Chen decides to untie her on one condition, that she won't clamp his head with her thighs like she did earlier. Later, Chen tells Kang that he has his things to deal with, so he cannot help them too much, and proceeds to provide her some firepower support while handing over his rifle to her. Kang then reveals that she plans to sneak attack the mob stronghold, as she believes that only retrieving the looted goods can enable the people trapped in the college to survive. As soon as Chen hears about supplies, he immediately pulls out a rifle from his bag, mentioning that Xiaofeng is his brother. Meanwhile, a mob boss gets informed that people outside are waiting for his orders, and that this time, they are going to take down the students in those dorms. Suddenly, Chen arrives, interrupting their plans, for which he sincerely apologizes. Chen proceeds to point his fingers at a mob, and he gets shot in the head. This leaves everyone astonished to see how Chen manages to do that. Meanwhile, it is shown that Kang is on a rooftop with a sniper, and she is the one who shot the mob. She believes that it is very dangerous for Chen to be alone in a room full of mobs. In a flashback event, we see Chen advising Kang to shoot down the mobs that he will point at. In the present, the curtains close suddenly, which renders Kang to have visuals inside the room, and the microphone gets interrupted as well. She quickly rushes to the mob hideout to help Chen out, but believes that he would have already died by now. However, she is surprised after finding Chen holding the mob boss by his throat, with dead bodies scattered all over the room, leaving Chen mentioning how there are no supplies there. As Chen is holding the mob boss by his throat, he tells Chen that cannot kill him, as the people behind him won't let him get away with it. Kang questions Chen if he did everything all alone, leading Chen to downplay his abilities and mention that these mobs were probably weak. Kang then questions if someone else might have raided them. This raises a great concern, as the students won't be able to survive with the scarcity of supplies. However, Chen has decided that if it comes to that, he will share some of his supplies. Chen then tells Kang that they are going to the girls' dormitory, as Xiaofeng and others are gathered there. The rest of the mobs have been hanged, by Chen, and their captain seems to be alive. Shortly after, a guy in a mask covering his face arrives at the scene and sees the captain hanging. He asks his men to quickly get her down. Jad, the mob captain, tells Steel Fang, the guy in the mask, that after having a close call with death, she needs his comfort. Steel Fang goes on to take out his whip and strikes it at the back of Jet, asking her how she is feeling now. Jet mentions that she is satisfied now. After a while, Steel Fang questions her about the one who took away his supplies. She comments that it was a devil, leading Steel Fang to inquire about his name. Jet reveals that it's Chen who stole their supplies. After reaching the girls' dormitory, Xiaofeng questions Chen what he is doing there. Chen then notices that Xiaofeng has a wound and learns that it is getting worse for some reason. However, Chen is aware of the reason and explains that the zombies have bacteria and viruses in their nails which can lead to death. He realizes that it needs medicine to be cured. Chen then pulls out medicine from his backpack and hands it over to Xiaofeng. He recalls in his previous life there was a man in the military whose combat power was comparable to a humanoid nuclear bomb known as the God of War. He believes that if that person is Xiaofeng, then his investment won't be in vain. Chen then informs them that the Great Flood is coming and asks them to evacuate the area immediately. He adds that the heat has already melted all the glaciers, resulting in seawater flooding, and by then, the entire land will be submerged in floodwater. Soon, Chen's old classmate and a girl that's full of herself, Fang Qin, arrives and calls this nonsense. She then begins reaching for Chen's backpack to have food, but brutally gets slapped by him. She then leaves, stating that she's going to complain to her dad about this and that he will have them all killed. However, she gets caught by Steel Fang, asking her to tell him about the whereabouts of Chen. Chen then begins to leave the dormitory, asking them to let Kang handle the evacuation process. Moreover, he is waiting for the Golden King snake to mutate and then harvest it, and wonders if he can get hydrokinesis ability by then, which is an ability that allows the users to manipulate water using their minds. Soon, Chen receives a phone call from Qin, asking to be saved. Chen arrives there and gets introduced to Steel Fang from the Federal Bureau of Evolution. Steel Fang then proceeds to release a horde of zombies and questions Chen if he is ready to die. Kang hears the growling of the zombie horde from a distance and realizes that it's coming from the direction that Chen left. She then decides to go check it out. Meanwhile, Steel Fang gives Chen a chance to save his classmate by kneeling and begging him to let her go. Chen then comments that it won't be impossible to save her, leading Shin to sigh in relief. However, Chen comments that he is not worthy of saving her and asks Shin to call her men to come help her out. This leads Shin to question Chen if he is going to take revenge on her just because she made some bad comments and called him inferior. She questions Chen if he thinks she will apologize and beg for him to save her, and adds that Chen is a completely pathetic man and she doesn't need him to save her. However, Chen believes that Chen is going to regret her words very soon as the zombie horde begins to surround her in no time. Immediately, Chen begins to beg for Chen to help her and mentions that she is wrong. Steel Fang sees that Chen is truly a person who doesn't care whether Chen lives or dies in this situation, or any other person for that matter. He then tells Chen that he will be joining Chen very soon and decides to show off the technology of his Federal Bureau of Evolution. Steel Fang proceeds to rub powder on his face while mentioning that it will make the zombie listen to the one who has the powder on. Chen realizes that he is not lying, as this renders the zombies to believe that the ones with powder are one of their own. Steel Fang then orders the zombies to attack Chen and tear him to pieces. However, Chen is quick to take out his swords and swings them both in sync, which renders the horde of zombies defeated in just one blow. Steel Fang grows even more infuriated after seeing Chen playing with him. Suddenly, Chen is standing in front of Steel Fang, while the zombie horde is still intact. However, Chen reveals that he is already done with them, and just like that, the zombies begin to fall one after the other. Moreover, Kang and Xiaofeng have arrived there as well. Chen then approaches Steel Fang and questions who ordered him to come kill him. Immediately after, Chen proceeds to rip Steel Fang's head off of his body along with the spinal cord. Kang and Xiaofeng witness the tremendous display of power, and the former sees that Chen has dealt with this situation in an instant just like before. She wonders what kind of monster this guy is. Chen thinks that it takes too much of his time to deal with these small issues and wishes that there was an assistant for him. Meanwhile, back at the Green City Hotel, Duan Ye is pleasuring herself while fantasizing about Chen. Turns out that she had recently dreamt about him and is pondering when he will return. Duan Ye then recalls Chen questioning her about the qualifications that she possesses, which would convince him to let her stay by his side. In the present, Duan Ye tells herself that she won't become a burden to Chen and is quite determined to be his right-hand man. Suddenly, she hears some disturbance from her room, where she goes to check it out, only to find a zombie suddenly appearing behind her. The zombie begins to grab Duan Ye, but she succeeds in dodging him. She then decides to use the gun to get rid of the zombie, but when she's about to lift it, she drops it on the floor. This makes Duan Ye realize that she is doomed when suddenly she notices that the zombie cannot see her. Rather, the zombie is only acting based on sound and smell. She realizes that she got lucky this time, but the zombie is still very close to her, and she is aware that if she is to make any sound, she will get attacked by the zombie. She then notices that the gun is the only weapon that can save her and begins to attempt to grab it while crawling on the ground. As she's about to reach the gun, she messes up and makes a sound, grabbing the zombie's attention. Thereupon, she recalls how Chen mentioned that one can find crystals inside the heads of zombies. He added and further mentioned that he doesn't like to keep useless people around him. Gaining determination from this, Duan turns around and proceeds to hold the zombie down after attacking using her heels. This grants her an opportunity to prove her worth in the eyes of Chen, but unfortunately, he is not there to witness this. Duan decides to smash open the zombie's head to see if there is any crystal. Back at the engineering university, Kang and Xiaofeng followed Chen's advice and started organizing the students to evacuate. Kang even sought out her brother Bai Ming's help and asked him to bring his troops to ensure the students' safety. Moreover, the snake Chen was closely paying attention to also started its mutation. Chen waits to see how far the snake can mutate and even brings a bucket filled with water as the snake needs to enter the water to begin the mutation process. After a while, the snake transforms into a formidable beast, and Chen is surprised to see such a massive growth from just the initial mutation. Chen is even considering keeping the snake as a pet until it begins to escape. However, Chen quickly catches up to it and decides to end it to gain the crystal. However, the snake is not wanting to go this easily as it begins to strangle Chen using its body. Chen believes that this will not be enough to take him down when suddenly, the snake begins to attempt to swallow Chen as a whole. The scene then shifts to Ming asking Kang if she cannot bear to part with Chen. He then sees that Kang likes Chen and reminds her that if he stays there, he will be doomed. However, Kang is firm in her thinking that Chen won't die. When Ming questions her if she is sure, Kang responds and mentions that when she first sees him, she has an impression that Chen is quite strong judging by his deep, mysterious, and unfathomable gaze. To her, Chen seems like a monster and she is sure that they will meet again. Meanwhile, Chen manages to hold down the snake's attack, wondering if it thought that he would be taken down like this. Chen is aware that the snake can bite even after getting its head severed off, so he decides to take out the crystal directly. Chen succeeds in doing so and begins wondering what type of ability this crystal will grant him. The extreme heat has destroyed people's will, and now the flood is sweeping the entire world completely. Even inland cities like Shangdu could not escape the flood's devastation. At the engineering university, only a few buildings are standing tall and the rest have fallen. Meanwhile, Chen, having absorbed the king snake's crystal core, has not immersed in the flood. Although Chen has not received the power to manipulate water with his mind, he has received the ability where he can swim underwater without needing to breathe. To him, it feels like he is breathing through his skin. Furthermore, his eyes have become more sensitive to the light as if a protective membrane has formed in front of them. However, Chen realizes that the debris in the flood water can be a great threat. He then sees that the volcanic eruption is not far as well and that the sky is clear. In his previous life, there was a great emergence of factions after the Great Flood, and Chen almost died by their hands several times. However, in this life, he has already taken care of Chang and the King's Snake, and now he only needs to get his hands on the remaining crystal cores. Chen recalls how in his previous life, the University of Technology experienced a rat plague and realized that the Rat King should be there. Chen then notices that he has relaxed too much, and now he is surrounded by a bunch of zombies. Meanwhile, two people from the Federal Bureau of Evolution are on the verge of their deaths, hanging on a pole. They notice Chen swimming their way accompanied by a horde of zombies. They immediately yell and inform Chen to not come any closer. After learning that they are from the Federal Bureau of Evolution, Chen jumps onto them and knocks one of them off the pole, prompting the other guy to hang on to him. The guy who was hanging asks the other to let go of him, otherwise they would both die. But he refuses, stating that if they die, they are going to die together. Chen then asks them to tell him everything they know about the Federal Bureau of Evolution, leaving for the man to inform them that they would rather die than say anything about their faction. Unfortunately, the guy hanging falls into the flood water. Seeing this, Chen decides to help them out to gain information from them. He defeats the entire horde of zombies with just one blow from his sword and saves the guy. He then decides to repay this favor by telling Chen what he needs to know. He begins to explain that they were sent by the Federal Bureau of Evolution to monitor Chen. He adds that their faction is located in the Science and Technology University, led by Chief Liu and a team of researchers. He further explains that they were just doing what they were told to do by the higher-ups. Chen then questions if they are researching the rats in the lab. In response, the guy mentions that only researchers are allowed to go into the labs, which is why no one else knows what goes on inside. Chen then decides to go there and investigate the situation before the rat disaster. Meanwhile, Duan obtains a crystal core from the zombie's head and notices that she has succeeded. Suddenly, the flood water managed to get inside the room as well. The water has already flooded the floor, and Duan is quick to notice something lurking in the water. It appears to be a type of sea monster that begins to strangle her entire body. Duan finds the creature to be slimy and gross and sees that the creature is looking at it with its teeth. Duanya is now in a situation where she cannot move at all as she has been completely entangled, and in no time, a lot of the same creatures appear in front of her. Duanya realizes that she is truly done for now and regrets that she didn't even get to use her ability once. She then recalls Chen telling her that as long as she can find and consume the crystal nucleus, she can obtain its ability. However, many monsters look ordinary, and it is hard to tell what ability a crystal nucleus holds just by their appearance. Duanya questions if she is not even aware of what ability she has, then how is it possible for her to use it? In response, Chen advises her to feel the environment and every change that's happening, and then try to master and control it. Back in the present, Duanya grows determined that she can get out of this situation on her own. She sees the sea creatures as little brains and grabs the same axe that she used to kill the zombie earlier. Turns out that Duanya has decided to cut down all the creatures like tofu, and that's exactly what she proceeds to do so. After being done with them, Duanya notices that she's quite dirty and exclaims that she needs to take a shower, followed by a background voice asking Duanya if he can join her. The voice is of none other than Chen himself and shows his impressiveness toward her for thinking to grab a weapon for protection. Seeing him, Duanya forgets everything she has to do and is excited to see Chen back. She goes on the jump on Chen and hugs him tightly, pressing him against her body tightly in the process. As soon as Duanya feels something touching her, she immediately backs off and learns that Chen is naked once again. Chen explains that the water was too dirty, so he had to take off all his clothes and mentions that he is going to take a shower now. Later, the two are bathing together, when Chen questions Duanya if she found her ability. She believes that Chen saw her ability, but he explains that he didn't, rather he could feel it through the temperature of her mouth. He then questions Duanya once again, wanting to know what ability she got her hands on. She reveals that it seems to be a type of mind control ability, leading Chen to question if it can be used on Flood, but she doesn't know. Duanya then proposes to use the ability on Chen and attempts to seduce him using mind control, but only in vain. However, Chen voluntarily gives into seduction, stating that he's going to make her practice till her legs go weak. Later, Chen is shown to be teaching Duanya how to shoot. When she questions him why he is spending so much time on her, Chen reveals that he's giving her half a day to familiarize herself with her abilities and shooting skills. He then confirms if she is from the medical university, and after getting confirmation, Chen tells Duanya that it's time for her to show how useful she can be. Duanya is wearing a bunny dress, and she questions Chen if he thinks that it's going to be fine that she wears it outside. Chen tells her that she can stay without clothes and no one will even dare to lay a hand on her as he is with her. Duanya then questions Chen if he has been to a science and technology university before, leading Chen to reveal that he came here once to see a friend and wonders if he survived. Soon they reach the gate, where the gatekeeper begins to shoot his rifle at Chen's ship, leading Chen to protect Duanya by acting as a shield for her. The gatekeeper then asks them the reason for their visit. In response, Chen mentions that they are there to change the Federal Bureau of Evolution and requests to let them in. The gatekeeper then sees Duanya in a cute bunny outfit and asks her to stay the night with him, and as for Chen, he asks him to go back where he came from. Duanya then offers some braised pork to the gatekeeper just to let them in. Giving on his desire to have a proper meal, the gatekeeper finally gets convinced and lets them in. The gatekeeper finds the braised pork to be heavenly in terms of taste and mentions that they are going to let them in for now. Meanwhile, he sends Lu Tao to show them the way to the lab. Along the way, Tao explains that since they all live in the base, it is only right that they help each other. He further explains that the lower levels are for the elderly, children, and other lowlifes. He then decides to take them upstairs and find them a clean room. Thereupon, a young girl collides with Duanya, explaining that she is feeling a bit dizzy. Duanya then picks her up and sees that she is too weak from hunger. Duanya asks her about her parents and where they are. In response, the girl mentions that they went to find food and haven't come back yet. Duanya then proceeds to provide the young girl a loaf of bread, but the young girl is worried that it will leave Duanya with nothing to eat. However, Chen interferes and assures the girl that Duanya will never run out of food. When the girl begins to reason with Chen, he pulls out a warm trolley filled with various types of food and assures everyone around that his woman will never go hungry in her life. Suddenly, a few men from the faction arrive after smelling the food. They explain that hoarding food is against the rules and that all materials must be handed over first and then exchanged for contribution points. Duanya then sees that the situation is escalating, so she decides to interfere and tells them that the food is prepared for them while using her mind control and asks them to enjoy it to their heart's content. They immediately attack the food, behaving like wild animals, and find the food to be quite delicious, but that might be just because they haven't eaten meat in so long. One of the men mentions to Duanya that she is quite sensible and tells Chen that he is going to be punished. He then makes the two lookouts from earlier that were hanging on the pole come out and tells Chen that he will have to duel these two to prove his life's worth. The young girl realizes that the two captives are her brothers. This leads the man to add another condition and informs Chen that if he is to lose the battle, they are going to throw the young girl along with her brothers into the ocean to feed the sea monsters. Chen sees that the two brothers seem to be in some sort of frenzied state, and he begins to wonder if they were injected with drugs. The brothers are then released from their restraints but get knocked out by Chen with just one blow to each one of them. The young girl begins to grow more worried about her brothers, but Duanya assures her that nothing is going to happen to them. Seeing this, the man begins to regret wasting his two medicines on the two useless brothers. He then tells Chen that he is in a good mood that day and asks him to let him have all his supplies, and in exchange he will forget all that happened just now. This leads Chen to question why he should hand over his supplies. Another man then explains to Chen that anyone entering the Science and Technology University must follow Boss Liu's rules to keep things in order and weed out the freeloaders. Chen also learns that he can earn contribution points by submitting his supplies and realizes that it is just like money. Chen then agrees but mentions that the food was the last bit of supply he had left, and since they have eaten it already, he is left with no supplies. Soon, Boss Liu arrives asking Chen to work for him if he needs contribution points. The men are immediately terrified of Liu's presence. Meanwhile, Chen and Duanya notice that Liu has a platform that he is sitting on, and that platform is being carried by a lot of men. As soon as one of those men begins to grow tired, Liu proceeds to knock him down and stabs him to death. He then tells Chen that they are running short on people, and that he is just in time to replace the guy he just killed. Moreover, Liu offers to provide an unlimited supply of instant noodles to Duanya, while referring to her as Bunny Girl. Meanwhile, one of the men tells Chen that Liu is giving them such a generous offer and advises him to accept it. All of a sudden, Liu begins to have a bad smell and questions his men if they have been eating. They immediately realize that it's such a huge mistake to eat without Liu's permission and go on to apologize, mentioning that they won't ever eat again without his permission. Seeing this, Chen notices that Liu saw through Duanya's mind control. Immediately, the three men begin to throw up and they rush to the bathroom. Chen finds this to be very strange as he does not sense any abilities from Liu, yet he is getting very powerful feelings from him as he effortlessly snaps everyone out of Duanya's mind control. Liu then asks Chen what he has thought of his offer, but he refuses, stating that he's not interested. Liu then asks Lu Tao to take place instead of the men he just killed and leaves. Shortly after, a man by the name of Miao Pu Yuan approaches Chen asking him to come with him. He reminds Chen that he's Tian Yui's roommate and that they met Chen when he last visited the school. Meanwhile, Liu asks Lu Tao to keep an eye on Duanya and not to let her escape.